the first feature film by the Oscar-winning director of the podcast Yano. Okay, so I'm going to explain what just happened.
Okay, go ahead.
This movie has no quotes page.
No.
And that is the tagline on the DVD.
Yes, on the release later in her career DVD.
The Milestone Collection DVD.
Is that how you watch this?
Yes, I bought the DVD.
Okay.
You bought the DVD?
Mhm.
It's on the Criterion.
I know
channel
that.
now.
Oh,
I know
it
that.
is.
It
Okay.
is.
All right.
Could have checked in with us, Ben. I would have told you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I like doing it myself. I like
it's
doing
on the
it
Criterion
wrong.
channel along with her 3 short films made prior to this. Have you seen those, David?
No, and shit, I've meant to watch them.
Well, maybe you can call me Mr. Homework this week because I did and I win.
You do. You're the winner.
I win. I'd like to talk about the short films a little bit.
Oh, no, we should definitely talk about the short
leading
films.
into this, but you should watch them. They're also, I think, on the Sweetie release.
Okay. We'll
Just
watch
telling
them
you.
sometime.
Okay, what are we talking though?
What are we talking about? We're talking about the Oscar-winning director of the podcast Yano. This is what I'm talking about. Front loaded, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's a new miniseries.
Wait. Is that a train I hear in the distance?
Hold on one second.
I think it's getting closer.
Kenneth Branagh is slowly taking off his cap, looking off to the horizon. Right? James Darcy is like, "What is it, sir?" And he goes, "A new podcast miniseries."
Yeah. Yeah.
Whom? That's what he says. Kenny B.
Jane Campion.
Oh!
One of your favorite directors, David. I feel like someone you've been really wanting to cover for a very long time.
I guess so.
We have our personal picks always that we're always sort of pushing for.
Sure, she's a fave of mine. She
She's
was
a
on
fave
my
of
bracket last year.
Yeah.
You've mentioned, David, that you had a very influential class whilst in university, right? Where you took was it just specifically New Zealand film?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because you also had an
We'll talk
Australian film class, did you not?
No.
No?
Just New Zealand.
Why did I think you had like an exploitation class?
I don't know. I do like those movies.
Okay, I'm
No,
very
no, no,
wrong.
no.
I'm very wrong.
No, I did. Well, you know what? Set up the show and then we can talk about the class I took in college.
It's embarrassing to get something that wrong, David, because you and I are, of course, the two friends.
Yeah.
That is our name. It is our competitive advantage on this here podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
Thank you. I'm David.
And it's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a Jane Campion series
Yes.
that we are calling, I will repeat for clarity, the podcast Yano.
The Podcastiano. That's how I have it in my head.
It looks funny. There's
So
a,
it's like
funny.
you kind of do a little
A little
wrist.
Italian.
how
get
to
a little
pronounce
wrist
it.
in there.
There might
The
be a little
Podcastiano.
Hey.
evolution of how we say it out loud. Who
Sure.
knows?
Right.
But this was the first time, David, where you, in fact, said we have to go with the sweatiest option. I threw out a bunch of options, and you said it's got to be the podcast Yano.
I liked how it sounded. I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun and cool.
And I even was like, we could do the podcast no. And you were like, no, it has to be IANO.
Yeah. Has to have Iano in it.
Podcast Yano. It sounds like a computer voice malfunction. Podcast Yano.
Podcastiano. Look, I don't know. Yeah, we could have done like Holy Podcast or the podcast
Podcast
of
at
a
my
lady,
table.
you know,
Right.
whatever. We could have phoned it in, but not for Janie.
I pitched a portrait of a casty.
Yeah, I hated that.
Yeah, you really hated that. You got angry and you threatened me with physical violence.
I did. I said,
Yeah.
if you fucking say those words to me again.
It was intense. Yeah.
Look, among the many reasons we wanted to cover her was the fact that what is, considered by most to be her first feature film is in fact titled Two Friends.
The Two Friends.
Well,
It's
no,
actually
no,
called
not
Two
the-
Friends. Right.
The definite article is still ours.
Yeah, that belongs to us.
Right.
But yes, Two Friends.
This was a TV movie. So there was
Yes.
some deliberation, I feel, about whether or not this was going to count or be a Patreon thing or whatever, but it played at the Cannes Film Festival. It's a proper movie. And also, Angel at My Table also was created as a TV movie, and we're obviously going to count that.
Yeah, was that created as like a mini series or something? Because it's long. No, I guess it was a movie. I don't know.
I
Anyway,
don't know how these New Zealand TV movies work, but this is where we're starting.
crazy.
Two Friends.
Two Friends.
Yeah.
Jane Campion's
back.
first movie.
Take us back.
Take
us back to the start?
to where it all started.
Okay, it all started in Wellington, New Zealand,
All right.
which is, I want to say that, you know what? I'm going to look it up. It's the capital of New Zealand. It's the biggest city, I think.
And that was
Auckland might be the
also the main hub of all the Jackson productions, right? Am I wrong in
You're
thinking
making me
that
check this now?
that Weta's in Wellington and that?
Almost certainly. It's the capital. It's the
Right.
big city.
Yeah. Just saying, it becomes a surprising hub of film production.
Okay. Auckland is the largest
Right.
city
Okay.
in New Zealand.
Okay.
Wellington is the capital
Okay.
of New Zealand. They are both, of course, on the North Island, which I think is the
Okay.
more populated of the two big islands. And Weta is based in Wellington.
Thank you.
But yes, New Zealand, of course, is this wonderful country that has a lot of really dramatic landscapes. It's actually really cool to make movies there because you've got a lot of options available to you, blah, blah, blah. But I'm skipping ahead. I did study New Zealand cinema in college, mostly so I could hang out with a girl I had a crush on who was named, mark the time. There you go. Bleep that out. You always forget.
You love bleeping out the name
You
of the
gotta
person.
bleep her name
You
out.
always.
She has a new name now. She got married. She
Okay.
she shed that name.
But still,
I just feel like every time you have an opportunity to invoke her, you do usually.
It's
to
only when I talk about New Zealand
No,
cinema.
I know, but I feel like you usually do it for the enjoyment of our guest, and we have no guest this week, and yet still, once again, you want to do the bit of saying her name and then bleeping it out.
I also want to shout out my professor, Bruce. Fuck, I need to look his name up. What was his name? Who taught
Bruce
me?
Willis. Hey, this is my class on New Zealand films or something, whatever. I get paid $1 million a class.
Did you see that clip?
I don't stand
Did you
up.
see the clip of the action movie?
Yeah, I did.
Where he like turns from day to night in the middle of him walking?
Yeah, it's incredible. It is incredible.
But that's like a clear indication of like he you only get him for a day, right? And they were
Yep.
like, shit, we need to finish this shot and he's not here.
Right. It turns to night on the other guy's coverage, and then as the action starts, it's clearly a stunt double for Bruce. Like they got like 3 shots of Bruce.
I want to shout out Bruce Babington. That was his name.
Okay.
My professor of film at Newcastle University.
And Ben,
I was an
bleep that
English
out.
major, but
You have to
Of
bleep that
course.
out.
but he did teach a course in New Zealand cinema, which included the works of Jane Campion, as well as like Jeff Murphy, Roger Donaldson, Lee Tamahori, a lot of the names you'd think of. Peter Jackson, obviously.
But was
It
that
is a surprisingly robust film industry for what is a small country in terms of population.
was that your activation point as a Campion fan? Because I feel like both you and I, as Oscar nerds, I'm sure, had the name Jane Campion rattling around our heads for years before we were really engaging with her work. Because it's like, oh fuck, she's like
One of the only women nominated for an
2
Oscar.
female director
directing, yeah.
nominees, and at the time she was like the only one who was still presently working.
Right.
She was the only female filmmaker who could release movies that said from
Well, yeah.
nominated director Jane Campion.
I saw In the Cut, I believe in theaters.
Okay.
Yes. So
I did
like
not.
I saw that, and that may have been, I just don't remember when I saw The Piano.
Mhm.
I think I may have seen The Piano before then on video or
Mhm.
whatever. So I'd seen those 2 movies. I don't think I'd seen any other Campion before I took this class.
I still to this day have only seen 3 of her films. I'm excited to watch a lot of these for the first time.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I've seen everything that she's made, but holy smoke, I do not remember it all.
Okay.
But she's so I'm a huge fan of hers. But let's talk about Jane Campion, who, of course, part of the reason we're covering her is she's got her first movie out in many years. Hopefully it's sweeping Oscar season, or at least generating some buzz.
Look, I think we felt like
It's on
this was
Netflix.
this is a win-win situation. Either she's winning Oscars and such right now, and this feels like a victory lap,
Mhm.
or she's getting snubbed and people are going to be outraged about it and demand more acclaim. But either way, people are talking about her again.
She was born in 1954 in Wellington, New Jersey. New Zealand.
huh?
Not New Jersey.
David.
I've been watching too much Sopranos.
Also,
Jersey on the
we
brain.
should say that we spent an hour before this episode doing some hardcore spreadsheeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little zonked from that probably.
It's the most
April
strenuous
30th,
physical activity
so-
David ever engages with. Yeah.
April 30th, isn't she
You're looking up her-
Aries? No, she's a Taurus like me. She's a
Okay.
Taurus like me. So we're very similar. Okay. Her dad.
David recently made a joke, by the way, that the cause of stress in his life is that both me and his daughter are water signs.
And Hosley.
And
Three
Haas-
water signs.
That the three of us that he
water
got
signs.
fucking shackled to these three fucking difficult emotional water signs,
Yeah.
and it's the two of us and a baby. He's putting
Yep.
us in a pot together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. My
Yeah.
baby is a Pisces. She was born in Wellington, New Zealand, 1954. What are you? You're a Cancer?
Cancer.
Yeah, I got my eye on you.
All right. Well,
I have the exact same sun, rising, and moon sign as Wes Anderson.
David,
Taurus, Scorpio.
that's pretty quirky of you.
pretty quirky.
That's pretty
I
fucking
put
quirky.
my deets into some database. Out comes Wes Anderson.
Yeah,
All right.
but it's a manual database.
Yeah, of course.
It's very
clack.
ornate.
All right. Her dad
It's
was
a
an
Dewey
opera,
Decimal
and
System.
she has her root in the arts. The arts are in her blood. Her
Family,
dad
a theater family.
was a theater and opera director.
Dramaturgical
her,
family.
Her mother was an actress.
Mhm.
Her mother also, I think, was the heir to some sort of like shoe company fortune or something. So they had sunk all that money into a New Zealand like theater company, one of the first professional theater companies in New Zealand.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
they were like very arty family.
Yeah.
And Campion has talked about how she kind of resisted that pull.
Interesting.
Like, she didn't she initially got like a BA in anthropology, like, you know what I mean? Like she didn't go into the arts right away. And I think she just wanted to avoid copying her parents.
Incredibly stupid Griffin on brand side tangent. David, have you ever seen the movie Mirror Mask?
No, I've
weird
never
Neil
seen
Gaiman,
the Neil
Henson
Gaiman
production.
No. What's his name? Dave McKean.
Right. That movie is not great, but
No, sure.
it has a very obvious but effective sort of opening for this kind of dynamic, which is she is a girl whose parents work in the circus and she's traveled around with the circus her whole life. And the whole movie is about the fact that she wants to run away from the circus and go to a normal school.
Right.
That she's the kid who's like, I've grown up around these artsy people and I want to live a very normal, structured life. And then at the end of the movie, she comes around to it. Anyway, I don't know. Jane Campion, of course, seems like a very serious-minded person.
she's kind of like a Ned Flanders kind of type. You know what
I don't
mean?
get a lot of Ned Flanders vibes from Jane
No,
Campion.
Ben's on to something here. She does look a lot like Ned Flanders.
She has
She
glasses.
looks, she has glasses, but also Ned Flanders' parents were famously beaten.
Oh,
Right,
that's-
they're hippies.
and
she
he
doesn't want to be.
rejected.
We've tried nothing,
No,
and we're all
I-
out of ideas.
I-
My
I
favorite
think-
Flanders parents joke.
I
This
think
kid's a flat tire, man. He's taking us on the road to Squaresville,
I'm not saying this is
Cubesville, baby.
I think it's Cubesville.
wholly unique. But for such a great artist, she does strike me as very like serious-minded and pragmatic and grounded.
Sure. I've got a quote here from our researchers, Nick and JJ,
Mhm.
where she's talking about anthropology, which in for some reason in New Zealand is called structural arts
That's cool.
or something. Let me look it up. Let me find it. Yeah, structural arts. That is
Cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
My degree didn't really lead me anywhere, but we had a fantastic professor, a Dutchman by the name of Power.
Okay.
I feel like in the 80s or 70s that she's going to school in New Zealand in the 70s, it's like if someone's in New Zealand from another country,
Yeah.
like that's probably sort of an interesting, right? Where they're like, you know what? I'm moving to the ends of the fucking earth.
Right.
I'm, like it's not like the easiest thing in the world to get to New Zealand now,
No.
but in the 70s,
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it became like the fucking cliche of like post Lord of the Rings and Bush re-election. So many people were like, I'm just gonna
Get as
fucking move to New
far
Zealand.
away from America as I can.
Right, like it was
New
thrown
Zealand's
out.
like, we don't want you, mate. Get
Right,
out
it
of
was
here.
thrown
My New
out by
Zealand
everyone.
accent's
It's like,
really
why
bad.
don't
I'm
I
sorry.
just pack it up and move to New Zealand? I have met a couple people who did that.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, it's a beautiful country.
Yeah,
It supports it. It's got a very good safety net.
they fucking handled COVID better than pretty much anywhere else up until a point in time.
Well, they're in a tiny country that's far away from everything.
Yeah.
They had a lot of advantages on that front. But yes,
And they're also doing a lot and more recently and like kind of coming to terms with how they treated the Aborigines.
Yes.
Which I think is
the
also
Maori people. Yes,
yeah.
It just
we're going to talk about that with the
feels-
piano.
Yeah,
like a more
yeah.
progressive, sort of.
But this is the thing. We
idyllic country.
fetishize these countries as Americans.
I'm
Same
talking
with, like,
about the post Lord
right,
of the
these
Rings.
Scandinavian countries who are like, well, I'll just live
Right.
there. And it's like, yeah, well, it's like 5 million people. It's like the
Of course.
population of Brooklyn over there. Like,
Yeah.
kind of spread out in a gorgeous panorama of mountains and lakes and deserts and whatever. Anyway.
David, the point I'm making is that is very much the modern perception of New Zealand. And I think you're onto something that if someone's
Back
an
in the
expat
day-
living in New Zealand in the 70s, you're like, what brought them
What are
here?
you running from,
What's your life? Yeah.
Professor Power?
Right.
Anyway, what interested me about anthropology, this is Jane Campion,
Okay.
was to be able to officially study what I was curious about anyway, how thoughts function.
Yeah.
Their mythic content, which has nothing to do with logic, human behaviors. I believe that I have an anthropological eye, a sense of observation. I loved both the theory and the poetry. What a smart ass woman this is.
This is what I'm talking about, though. Like, she does not read as someone who grew up in an artistic family. Like when you read about fucking Julia DeCarno, right? And you're like, oh, both her parents were doctors. That makes perfect fucking sense. She makes movies like the daughter of two doctors, right? And Jane Campion, I would sooner believe like she was the child of two therapists.
Sure. Right. But no.
But it's interesting that she was sort of rebelling against a more artistic family and then bringing a more kind of perhaps academic mind to art.
She graduates from Victoria University.
Okay.
She travels Europe. She attends an art school in Venice. She calls this the best and darkest time in her early life. I think it was a lot of ups and downs. She's in her 20s.
So romantic to
It
go
is
study
fucking
fucking
Venice.
painting of Venice.
I know.
Woo.
Definitely. Then in 76, she moves to London,
Okay.
attends the Chelsea School of Arts. This was a tough, lonely time for her, she says. London in the 70s, God love London, but that's a rough time to be in London. That's like garbage piling up in the streets, winter discontent.
It's so funny,
The fucking
David.
3-day work week. What?
I always used to think that old London was so glamorous and
Old
fun.
London,
And then I
damn.
saw this movie called Last Night in Soho.
Oh boy,
It made me
there was an
realize-
underbelly to that
Maybe this
one.
place ain't so nice,
Oh,
innit? Stubbing in the
Stubbing.
street with my feet in it.
You thought it was all, pool halls and glamour balls and Cilla Black crooning.
I thought everything was nice, isn't it?
Yes. So I wasn't even that interested in movies, she says at this point. Like,
Okay.
she didn't grow up with a big passion for movies.
Mhm.
Her love for movies is not yet developed, really. But she does say her mom would take her to like Buñuel movies, so it's not like she didn't have any, her mother, her fancy pants artist parents, they're taking her to see cool shit. 77, she comes back closer to home. She goes to Sydney in Australia, gets a BA in painting. She likes art school.
She's
likes
really
thinking
getting a
about
lot of
art.
school.
Hey,
too.
man.
Wow. Like Jane loves reading.
Academic.
and
All
shit.
right.
Yeah.
4 eyes.
Yeah.
That's
well,
what
I
I'd say
am
to
wearing
her.
glasses.
Well, you are too.
Yeah.
I am
That's true.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at Sydney College of Art, she's doing painting. She likes that, but that's when she starts to get interested in, visual arts, writing little plays,
Okay.
doing little performance pieces,
Okay.
recording it on videotapes. She didn't like the quality of videotapes, so she decides to make her first short film, Tissues. Did you watch this movie?
No, Tissues I couldn't find.
That one might not be totally available. That is
I
about
think she makes 4 films and 3 of them are readily in circulation.
that is about a father arrested for child molestation.
Yeah, definitely didn't see that one.
She made it on a Super 8
Okay.
camera. And she's kind of just like making it up as she goes along. She's like
Okay.
learning on the job. She
Okay.
doesn't really know what she's doing. But making that inspires her. She applies for like a grant from like the Australian government or whatever.
Mhm.
She meets Gerald Lee, who she writes Sweetie with.
Okay.
So that's when she kind of, forms that early collaboration.
Mhm.
She makes an experimental video called Mishap, Seduction, and Conquest. Did you watch this thing? This
No.
doesn't seem to count. I don't know. That's like a weird art
The
project.
3 I watched were Peel,
Yeah, okay.
aka An Exercise in Discipline,
Okay. So
A
that's
Girl's
the
Own
next one.
Story, and Passionless Moments.
In 82, she makes a short film called Peel,
Yeah.
An Exercise in Discipline, which wins her the short film Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about her friend and her friend's family, and there's conflict. What's
It's
going on here?
Odd film. I mean, first of all, it's very short. It's like 7 minutes with credits.
Sure.
I think so. It's a real short. And there's this interesting opening credit sequence where she like establishes like it says like, an exercise in conflict and then Peel in giant letters.
Cool.
And then it credits the 3 actors.
Love that.
You recognize the 2 of them share the same last name. And then the next title card is like a triangle establishing the family members and their relationships to each other.
Right.
Where it's like Jack, dad, Alice, sister, whatever. I'm getting
Sure,
the specifics,
okay.
right? Like
Okay.
nephew, son, whatever it is. And then it says like a real conflict based on a real family or something like that. What are you
Because
laughing
it was
at?
inspired by her friend's
Right.
relationship with her family. Her friend's name, is Katie Pie.
Right. It's the
Cool,
pies. PYE.
David,
Yes.
this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Yes, again, we talk about BetterHelp a lot on this show. And this month, January, we're discussing some of the stigmas around mental health. I know you're surprised, David, that I am talking about mental health on this podcast.
Yeah, you never bring that up.
I never get messy on
Never,
Maine.
Never get messy on Maine, right?
No, look, for example, some people think that you should wait until things are unbearable to go to therapy, but that isn't true. Therapy is a tool to utilize before things get worse, and it can help you avoid those lows.
And a lot of people think therapy is for so-called quote unquote crazy people, but therapy doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means you recognize that humans have emotions and you need to learn to control them, not avoid them.
Yeah, and we've been taught that mental health shouldn't be part of normal life, but that's wrong too. We take care of our bodies with the gym, some of us, the doctors, we go to them. We monitor nutrition in terms of what we're eating. We should be focusing on our minds just as much.
Yeah, and look, BetterHelp, their customized online therapy service. They offer phone, video, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to.
Huge.
Yeah, unless Zoom sometimes or FaceTime or whatever, it can be a little awkward.
Absolutely.
It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy.
Yeah, look, I talk about my stuff all the time, and perhaps I don't talk enough about how much therapy has helped me. If you think I'm a mess these days, oh boy, you have no idea what my early 20s were like.
Therapy has helped me as well in tough times. And this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Blank Check listeners get 10% off
Huge.
their first month at betterhelp.com/check. That's BETTERHELP.com/check. 10% off your first month.
Easy.
It is easy.
The thing is essentially about this kid's in the back seat and they're driving to go to like a party, and the kid is eating an orange. They have all these oranges on the dashboard, and he like peels it and he throws the peel out the window. And then the guy is like pulls over the side of the road and is like, you have to go pick that peel up. You don't litter. And so he tells the kid to get out of the car and pick the peel up. And then the kid like doesn't come back. And they're fighting about the fact that they're going to be late. And he goes out, and the kid is like clearly like now very burdened by the idea that he's done something horribly wrong, and is like meticulously looking for every single piece of the peel to pick up. And he's sort of trying to like console the kid. And then he brings him back to the car, and the woman has now, in the time that she's waiting and being frustrated, peeled her own orange and thrown it out of the car and refuses to pick it up. That's like the whole thing.
Would you give it the palm? The short palm?
I would not. I would admit, I
You weren't into it.
I was mildly perplexed by this thing. The other 2 shorts I think are great.
Okay. Well, you know who also agrees with you? The Australia Film, whatever, the Australian Film Commission, or they were like, this thing stinks. Don't bother
I
finishing
didn't think
it.
it stinked. I was just like, this is odd.
Well,
I don't totally, I'm not
They thought it
clicking into
stank.
it. Okay, well, that's them.
And so anyway, so she then she collaborates with Gerald Reed on a movie called Passionless Moments.
Yeah, so that it is sort of what it sounds like, where it's almost like this is like a series of like 3-panel comic strips of like awkward moments that people have, odd things that don't seem to mean anything, like 2 neighbors on either side of a fence, and the one guy's stretching his arm because he injured it, and the other guy thinks that he's waving, so then he has to commit to waving back, even though that wasn't what he was intending to do. And it's like black and white. As far as I remember, there's like no dialogue really.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like a Ricky J. Magnolia-esque narration explaining like, then there's the story of blank blank who is stretching his arm, which was misinterpreted.
Right.
It's just a funny sort of observational. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's like these moments that are sort of meaningless,
Right.
but are given some sort of meaning in terms of like they're these universal sort of odd things.
Yes, it won an experimental film award from the Australian Film
She
Institute.
co-directed that.
She
right?
co-directed it with Gerald Lee, who
Right.
she was living with at the time.
Okay.
I think they had a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell any tales out of school. Her final student film is called A Girl's Own Story.
Now this thing I think is a fucking knockout. And I don't know if this
This is about teenage girls in the 60s.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe my semi-controversial opinion. I liked this more than Two Friends.
I think Two Friends is if I'm ranking all her movies, is her worst movie.
Sure.
I mean, it's got a lot of DNA, Campion DNA, but
I think Two Friends is like, okay.
It's okay.
And Story of a Girl is like 25 minutes, 27 minutes, something like that. And packs like a lot more punch. And I watched these four things in chronological order.
Yeah.
And there's such a build to them where I'm like, fuck,
Right.
you see her getting like better and getting more ambitious and getting larger, that I was like, I'm ready for fucking Two Friends. And it didn't feel like a step back, but there's just like, Story of a Girl is a really kind of tight, powerful, impactful object.
Right.
But it's almost like, it reminded me a little bit of like, Celine Sciamma movies.
Mhm.
It is a trifecta of girls coming to terms with their own sexuality, teenage girls in New Zealand trying to parse interpersonal romantic sexual relationships, both within themselves and their parents, and their understanding of these things, each other. And it sort of has sort of like a series of weird ellipses. A lot of the big scenes don't happen.
Mm.
A crux of it is one girl getting pregnant, but you don't actually see the sex scene. Everything you sort of find out in an odd order. But it's just really, really fucking good. It's like incredibly well made and impactful. And you're really getting a sense of her as a visual stylist in this thing. It's very off-putting and alienating in an interesting way. A thing I read about it is that she wanted to cast Nicole Kidman, who was a teenager at the time.
I was about to
Okay,
drop
I'm sorry.
that.
I'm sorry. Then you can say it.
Nicole Kidman turned down a role in the film over fears of kissing another girl on screen
And?
being sexy, wearing a shower.
Huge. They're part of a swim team. She did not want to wear the cap.
Those like rubber caps.
Yeah.
They were pretty annoying.
She also had pretty bug nuts hair at the time. If you look at like
the
BMX
Bandits hair.
right?
She had this big curly hair.
Cool.
Yeah, she's fucking badass. Have you ever seen BMX Bandits?
No.
It's a real Ben movie.
Yeah.
You
it
would love
sounds
BMX Bandits.
sick.
That's a movie that would run on British TV all the time.
Isn't that what's his name? That's sort of like really good.
Orson Welles?
The like Australian.
Brian Trenchard Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is one of those guys. He's one
Right.
of those
He's just one of these
exploitation guys.
pros
Yeah.
who like is like, look, the promise of a Brian Trenchard Smith movie is it's going to be a little better than it should be. I just make genre films, but I try to make it a little bit better than it should be.
So, you've got Campion. She's making these little movies.
Sure.
She works on something called After Hours, another short that she made about workplace sexual harassment.
Okay.
Which she speaks poorly of. She didn't like making it. It was made for like the government again and whatever. I don't know. She was whatever. She does not think fondly of that movie. She also worked on an episode of Dancing Days, a miniseries about two sisters who leave the family pig farm to pursue dancing careers in the big city.
That sounds cool. David, I'm letting you sort of parse the dossier and lead us into this because she's one of your favorites. This is kind of a little bit of a David's Choice series. So I'm asking for your clarification here. I couldn't tell if it was just poorly written sentences, not in our dossier, but in other stuff I was looking at. Did Peel winning the Palme d'Or happen the same year that Two Friends was in competition? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was all three of the shorts that are in the Criterion collection.
Yeah.
The three that I watched all screened at Cannes the same
in
year
86.
as Two Friends. Like she had 4 different things at Cannes.
Correct.
And she won, the short award. Okay. So that's like her huge fucking year where Cannes just sort of says like, you're Two Friends is in Uncertain Regard, right?
Probably. Let me look at it. 1986 Cannes Film Festival. Let's find out of the 1986.
But it sort of immediately
a
legitimizes.
notorious Palm winner. Do you know who won the Palm?
What year?
86.
Notorious.
I mean, not really. It's just like, it's not a bad movie, but it's insane that it won against some of these movies.
Is it like it's like a big studio film?
It's sort of. It's The Mission by Roland Joffe, which is like
yeah.
a movie that's like very, very pretty.
Yeah.
And has this beautiful score, but is like, okay. And it's up against like After Hours, Down by Law. What are some other, Mona Lisa? I guess it's sort of The Sacrifice, the Tarkovsky movie,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good year.
It is. It is usually. Anyway, Uncertain Regard.
It sort of single-handedly makes Campion someone to watch, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? You have 3 short films and a TV movie that are all legitimized by the most prestigious film festival on the planet.
2 of the shorts are in Uncertain Regard with 2 friends.
Okay. They're
Passionless
screening
Moment
together?
and A Girl's Own Story. No, they're all separate.
Okay.
I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know if maybe they all screen together.
Yeah.
Right? That would make sense.
Yeah.
And then Peel is in the short film competition and wins.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Actually,
It's weird.
Making me think, because you're saying competition and it's sounding kind of like the Olympics. Do judges after the movie hold up cards with numbers on it?
Yeah, they hold up. No, they don't. No, they go and I believe how it works at like
Ben,
Cannes
great
or whatever.
question.
Great question.
They sit in a little like box like Statler and Waldorf on the Muppet Show, and the second the screening ends, the lights come up and they hold up the.
If they go like this, thumbs down, the crowd is like, "Rah!"
And then
they trash the theater,
and the stage opens up and they drop the filmmaker
Lions
down.
eat them.
There was an episode of the Muppet Show where Statler and Waldorf did that. It was really funny, where they just start rating sketches like they're Olympic judges.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's holding up numbers is actually just always funny. I think
Hilarious.
It's just funny.
Hilarious.
Can you tell me who the jury president was in 1986?
I'm going to say that it was, of course, Paul Hogan. He was doing everything in 86, wasn't he?
Yeah. It was the big dog, Sidney Pollack.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Some other big boys. Charles Aznavour was on from Shoot the Piano Player. We love him. Sonia
Also
Braga.
host of the Muppet Show. Yeah, Sonia Braga.
And back in the day when they had fucking film critics on the Cannes jury, Philip French, who was a fucking legend.
Jealous.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Berlin, I think, still will have one,
Mhm.
but the others have dropped having a film critic, which
Yeah.
is too bad because it used to be like, imagine like, because you see the movies.
Right.
I think every day you meet, having seen probably a few movies, right? You're going to see 20 something.
That's what it is. Yeah, they have. I think they have like daily meetings.
And
where they
there's
check
like
in
there's
and,
like this
temperature,
woman
what do you
at
think it
Cannes,
is?
I believe, who's been doing it for years. So she's there too, and she writes down everything everyone says. And it's sort of like, oh, so what did you think of Titan? And they're like, oh, I loved it. Blah blah blah. Blah should be considered for acting. And then so it's like when you finally gather at the end of it, she'll be like, well, you all said that Titan was the best thing like 5 days ago. So, like she's there to sort of remind you.
But it's like an evolving conversation over the course of a week. And then I think you get contentious horse trading of like,
okay, if it can't be best picture, can we at least give director, right? Yeah.
And you'll hear these stories about like, oh, everyone thought this was going to win the Palme d'Or. But what it came down to is the president of the jury just didn't like it. Everyone else loved it. And the president of the jury didn't like it.
There's some things like that.
Or opposite way around. There's one thing they were pushing for really hard that no one else liked or whatever. Cannes should start letting one podcaster into the jury.
I think they should do that.
Dave Portnoy.
I think they should do that. And I think it's embarrassing that they haven't done
whatever's playing at that.
No. All right.
One bite reviews. I'm sorry, what?
Okay, so two friends. In 1986, ABC, not the American Broadcasting Company, but the Australian TV.
Okay.
They've got a crew.
Are they
available.
allowed to do that?
You think they should sue?
I think so.
Now.
They should swoop in.
Yeah.
The Australian Broadcasting Corporation had a crew available. They had an opening in their production plan. They had a screenplay by Helen Garner, who's a famous novelist. And they're basically like, there's a window. Do you want to do this?
Yeah, it's also
do a TV movie.
Weird thing. I mean, time for TV movies, I think, especially in other countries where it's like, we need things to fill up broadcasting hours.
I mean, that's how so many great British directors get their start in TV because, especially back in the day, and I think it's the same in Australia and New Zealand, like there was government money, come and make an hour-long drama, come make a television movie, something like that, about issues, right?
Yeah.
About like life. And, that's like, it'll be good for the culture, right? to not just have trash on television. It'll develop
Not just American trash.
fucking America.
Well, David, that's a very good point also, is that in non-American countries, TV seasons do not last as long as they fucking do, and shows don't run for as many
There's
years.
space.
Where they're like, there's space.
Yep.
Our hottest show is only going to run 6 weeks a year. You know?
It's just wild.
Get some fucking film school graduates and give them an issues drama or just a
Totally.
very small slice of life story that we can make cheaply.
Right. But it's just wild as all, we're all Americans here. It's just crazy to think about.
We've all exclusively lived in the United States
Right.
of America.
And so this notion
Eastern Seaboard.
of like my tax money went to some idiot who went to art school to make a movie, like that would just never happen here.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could be seeing people outraged about that? If that was like a problem where it's like, yeah, fucking complain about the fact that our government subsidizes the arts.
Right. Yeah. Can only imagine. Instead, it's like people don't want to pay for fucking social like services. So
Right. People don't want to not die. I wish the arts were the canard that they could
I
complain
know.
about.
I
They
know.
still fucking complain though. They're always hauling like Big Bird in front of Congress or whatever.
I know, it's fucking
Being
insane.
like, you piece of shit.
Yeah. I
Mr.
pay for
Rogers."
this.
Anyway, Campion loves the script. She liked
Okay.
the freshness of observation, the
And
truth.
this is just like an original spec script.
Helen
This-
Garner, who is this, novelist and writer, she'd been
Yeah.
inspired by the experiences of her daughter and one of her friends.
Okay. But it's not based on one of her own novels or anything.
No,
Yeah, okay.
no. Campion goes and meets the girls that Garner's inspired by.
The titular
two friends, and gets to work on this movie.
Okay.
And I feel like she has a pretty simple camera style. Apparently she fought with the director of photography. I had to be very obstinate to impose my views. I don't want to cast any judgment on this DP, but he might have been like, who's this young lady bossing me around, telling me how to set up a shot? She doesn't know. She didn't do a lot of takes. She didn't do close-ups. This movie is really no close-ups at all.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
When you like start to realize like we're always at a distance from these girls.
I mean, not to jump ahead here, but this is a movie where, and I think this is almost by design. I get it intellectually, but I found this movie very hard to connect to until the last like 20 or 30 minutes. I found it very alienating, distancing, which I think was her whole
It's the
idea.
idea.
But it might be a little bit of a like cut your nose to spite your face idea.
Well, it's also got this, kind of
It's-
aggressive
yes.
storytelling style where
Right.
it's starting at the end of their friendship and going backwards, which
I
obviously
get.
is interesting.
But
And
the first 45 minutes, I was like, I cannot find my way into this thing.
Ben, in House of Gucci, I think it's House of Gucci. Maybe it's Licorice Pizza. It's some movie I just saw. This item is in a house.
Oh, nice.
This
Which
lamp.
this is David's talking about. My girlfriend has from her grandmother this like 60s
It's got like a huge marble
Italian-
base. I think it must be in House of Gucci.
like kind of
Interesting.
overhanging, kind of like
Light.
ceiling light. Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. Well, I'll take a picture. Sound off in the comments.
I agree with you. Sound off in the comments.
Yeah, it has to be in House of Gucci because you and I got a slice together.
We did get a slice together, and it's not in Licorice Pizza, right? It's,
Oh,
it's
man.
in Gucci. It's
I'm
in Gucci.
stoked to fucking see that. I feel like
LP?
everyone's just hyping
Ben,
it up
you
who
gotta
I
try a
like
slice.
respect. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have a pie.
Yeah, you might want to order a whole pie.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
might
man.
want to get a whole pie.
I'm gonna sit down. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna get delivered. I'm sitting down.
Oh, you're not going to take out?
You're
gonna sit at the
dine
party?
in.
One pie, please. I'm taking a seat.
I'll be sitting over there.
Mhm, mhm.
Table 12.
I'll get my fountain's root beer. I'm gonna
Sure.
be sitting over here.
Yeah, nothing goes better with licorice pizza than root beer. Helen Garner, accomplished novelist.
Okay.
She wrote a book called Monkey Grip about heroin addiction that is seen as a very important text in Australian literature.
Okay.
She's written some nonfiction stuff, sort of true crimey stuff
Mm-hmm.
that is a big deal. And I think she got into screenwriting, as she put it, for the money. There's
Interesting.
some cash in it.
Yeah, I mean,
She likes it, but
Yeah. It is an interesting. This wasn't her first screenplay, was it?
No, and she,
Yeah.
she eventually works with Jane Campion here. Obviously, she works with Gillian Armstrong later, who's
Right.
another famous Australasian
Mhm.
female director. So she likes working with those people. She liked working with Campion a lot. I learned from Jane Campion to follow and trust intuition, no matter how alarmingly it swerves.
I just think the conceit of this story is so novelistic. I'm surprised that she chose
it's
to
not.
write it
But-
as a script and not a book first. Yeah.
Well, she probably was asked to write a script, and she's a novelist, and she writes it all novelly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess is the. But yeah, I mean, I love Jane Campion,
Yes.
and she is so
Why don't you marry
good
her?
at intimate emotion,
Mhm.
at like depicting it on screen, depicting the dynamics between people
Yes.
in ways that don't feel obvious, but you can like understand the nuance of
Yeah.
what's happening between two people. So I hear there's like a movie she made about two friends. It's about teenage
Well,
girl
first of all, you
friendship.
hear it's about two friends. You're already on
I'm
board,
interested.
obviously. You're feeling competitive,
Yeah,
but you're on board.
even though this was made like the year I was born.
Yeah, territorial. Yeah.
And so and to me, like female friendship, especially between teenage, that's such a, you're already like stiffening up. You're like, oh, this is gonna be, there's so much potential for hurt.
I think we're both sensey boys who like movies about female friendship.
Yeah, but like, oh God, this is
Yeah.
probably, and I was engaged by this movie, but I was not. I think I was maybe hoping for something that was really going to feel like searing.
Yeah, I was struggling to stay
instead it's-
engaged until the end.
It's a lot of like, awkward little moments and sort of odd dynamics with the parents and things like, like that is well done. But I just wasn't, getting worked up.
Yeah. I mean, right. Like part of the idea here is that, and you really, I know you're good at this, but you should watch A Girl's Own Story because
All right.
it feels like the better execution of this in a lot of ways, and it's. I think the style and the craft and it's much stronger, but the dynamics are also a little more innately interesting to me. And that's a movie where she goes from doing this kind of very distance, obscured, almost like voyeuristic camera placement to doing like very extreme in your face close-ups. And the balance of the two helps, I think. Versus this thing that's putting you at a remove on purpose. This movie is sort of like a Tenet without the temporal pincer movements.
Sure. It's
where
just
it's-
backwards. They
right,
don't go
it's-
forwards at a certain point.
At the end of the movie, you realize they were best friends, right? But it starts off with two people who seem like they couldn't have less to do with each other and are an icy remove from each other.
Yeah.
And then slowly the intimacy comes in backwards and you start to understand how
Let's
much
split them
things
apart.
changed for them over the last year. Let's split them apart.
And it's only set over the course of like a year. It's not even like
Right. And you have inner titles telling you like
X months earlier.
July, 2 months earlier, whatever it is. It's very clearly delineated, but yeah, I don't know. I kind of agree with you that it's just I wanted to fucking love this thing.
I have some news for you.
And I love The
Gilles
Girls on
Jacob,
Uh-huh.
the famed, infamous honcho of Cannes for many years,
Uh-huh.
saw this movie and all her shorts.
Okay.
The whole package.
Yeah.
And takes Philip Adams, chairman of the Australian Film Commission. My guess is he grabs him by the lapel.
Yeah.
And pulls him close. And he says, listen up, buddy. He says, listen to me now.
Yeah.
You must give her lots of money so she'll be in competition here with a feature in a couple years. Like, he's basically like, this is the real deal.
That's what it sounds.
Pony up.
That's the thing. Like to have fucking 3 shorts and a TV movie all play a canon in the same year feels like someone putting their foot down and going like, attention must be paid. We're calling
Absolutely.
the shot right now that this is a major artist. We've covered some directors who came out of the gate like pretty close to fully formed, right? Have just kind of like impeccable first films.
Sure.
But there's something fun about anytime we get to go back to someone's first film that is really kind of like primordial like this.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Like
it-
a Loveless or
Yes.
trying to think of other debuts that feel that way.
I mean, I don't like this movie as much, but the Praying with
Following,
Anger.
Praying with
Following's a great
Anger.
example. Right. Where there is this weird kind of like time machine effect where it's like you're watching this movie that is a director trying to figure themselves out with the knowledge of the future. So you're
Mhm.
seeing it through the prism of like, what does exist here at the earliest stages? What have they not figured out yet? I do always get that kind of rush every time we watch like a forgotten first film by someone who goes on to be someone major later. And if we're covering them on the show, they by default have become major to one extent or another.
Yeah.
David?
Yep.
You, David Sims, David Lawrence Sims,
That's true. I am David Lawrence Sims.
You're successful in business because you love doing the research.
Yeah, I love
That's
to
true.
dig in to the dossier. Yeah.
If I know anything about you, it's that you love doing we hired 2 researchers to help with the podcast because we love research so much.
That's true. And we love hiring.
Well, that's the thing. This 2 things together, because whether it's the state of the market or the next right hire, when you're low on hours, you still want to do a great job on hiring. Who do you go for help? It's time for Indeed. Look, David, if you're hiring, the fact of the matter is you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't have to go 3 different places. Remember back in the day we had to go 3 different places?
Yeah, to go to the attract site, the interview site, the hire site. Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on all those job sites trying to find candidates with the right skills, you use Indeed. It's a powerful hiring partner. It's got these time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match and assessments and virtual interviews. And with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description. And you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements.
David, hold on 1 second. Absolutely. Hold on 1 second. I just have to quickly delete some bookmarks from my browser. Attract.com. Remove interview.org. Out of here. Hire.gov. Hit the bricks.
Look, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest 2019. 3 million businesses worldwide use Indeed to hire great talent fast, and you can start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/check. Offer valid through March 31st. So you got the whole
time.
3 months to do
You
this.
got 3 months. You almost got a quarter. You almost have a fiscal quarter here. And David, one of the things that I love about Indeed is that right now I've just added 1 new bookmark. It's Indeed.com. That makes hiring all in one place so easy.
Well, you should make that bookmark Indeed.com/check to claim your $75 credit before March 31st.
You're right. That's a better bookmark. Yeah.
Indeed.com/check. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed. I'm trying to think of things to say about Two Friends.
It's got some
Ben, tell me
punk
about
in
your
it.
viewing experience, huh?
It's got some punk in
It's
it.
got some punk in it.
Yeah. So
Which-
one of the friends is a little more punk than the other.
Right.
Well-
Well, I would say kind of more maybe new wave, right? To be
Sure,
Well, it's the
sure,
80s.
more
sure,
accurate.
sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. But that right away drew me in. And that she's like having this, like the movie starts off with her having this rebellious moment.
Yes.
And to what you were saying, David, I like how understated it is that this girl is making such a poor choice. And you're
Mhm.
kind of like, how is everyone in her life letting her do this? But then again, as the movie goes on,
Yeah.
You
it
understand
kind
what's
of
driving her.
really, you really come to understand it.
Well, and the very end of the movie, which is chronologically the beginning, is like this girl saying, I'm never gonna do drugs ever in my life. I can't.
Right.
Right.
yeah.
It does. I'll say this. It does evoke that thing when you are a teenager and everything feels so high stakes
Mhm.
Yes.
and things can change so radically over the course of a month.
Yeah.
And
Right. Like you're just
exactly.
like, I will be friends with this person for the rest of my life. And a month later, you're like, I'm never talking to them ever again.
And also
And people go through weird phases and extreme life events and all that sort of shit.
that's
Yeah.
sort of foolish, but understandable way that we act as teenagers, where we're like, every decision I make
Poorly?
is really important.
Poorly. Yeah.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yeah.
where it's like, this is, I'm deciding on my personality here. Like,
Yeah.
like it's still exciting.
Yes. Yes.
Now I'm like, I just want to take a nap.
David, mind taking a nap.
Nap-a-rooney.
That's my thing. Truly, the longer the show goes on, the thing that still rings in my head the most is Detective Dormer saying, "Let me sleep."
Let me
Like
sleep.
of all the movies we've covered, I just constantly think about like him just lying there, "Please let me sleep." Like at all times, my reaction to almost everything now is like, "I don't want to deal with this. Just let me sleep."
And when I was a teenager and I saw Insomnia in theaters, I was like, he's so old.
Yeah, this
Of course he wants to sleep.
right. Then you watching something now, you realize he's 35.
Right now I watch and I'm like, oh, this is 20 years ago. Pacino's still kicking.
How scary would that be though if that's a movie where you realize like he's 35 in this?
Pacino's my age in this?
Right.
What the fuck?
The fucking Homer Simpson, Tony Soprano thing. We're
Oh,
just like, how
man.
old is that
I
character?
looked it up, Ben. I looked up what Ned Flanders' dad says.
Okay.
Oh man, Ned spilled ink all over my poems. He's a real flat tire. I mean a cube, man. He's putting us on the train to Squaresville. So it is to Squaresville, but he also calls him a cube.
Nice.
It rolls.
Whoopsie doodle.
Flanders low key one of the best characters of all time.
Great character. What do you think of the later revelation that he has a giant dick? Remember when The Simpsons snuck that in like season 10-ish?
We had a very heated conversation about this with the Doughboys.
We did?
Yes.
About his big dick?
In our text thread, because I was trying to watch
remember.
every episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, right.
In the pandemic, and then I slowed down because I got freaked out about what if I finish watching 32 seasons of
America
The Simpsons before there's a vaccine.
Is not unfucked, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which look, I was getting ahead of myself. America will never again be unfucked. But Weiger was arguing it's a double beat.
The
You
dick?
already have the thing that Flanders is like surprisingly ripped,
Right,
right?
he's
Which
got
I think
the
they
abs,
reveal in
right.
Streetcar. And then like the fucking whatever the episode is with the skiing.
Stupid
it's like-
sexy Flanders.
Right. And then the additional he has a big dick is like, you don't need it. Already the fact that he's like secretly cut.
I agree with that. I agree with
But I
Weiger.
kind of like the idea of him being ashamed of having a big dick.
I guess so. But I agree with Weiger that like, right, you already did the work. Like and stupid sexy Flanders can't be top because it's funny because Homer is acknowledging that he's
hot.
sexy.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if Homer was just like, I can't stop thinking about Flanders. And he's like, stupid sexy Flanders.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. First 10 seasons of Flanders characterization, it's one of those things where every time they add a new wrinkle or depth, you're just like, this guy just got more interesting. The fucking beatnik parents.
When did they kill Maud? That's later. That's like
It's a 12, 11 or
13.
12.
that was bad.
Oh yeah.
That episode is horrendous, and that's sort of a point of no return. For the
That's
whole
a
show
real
for
that's
me.
a real tough episode.
That
right.
episode in and of itself is bad.
Yeah.
Like aside from that being a bad choice of a storyline, it's bad.
Didn't they kill her because the actress
Correct.
left or
Correct.
died?
Correct. And then they justify as like
Maggie
feels like a way to
Roswell,
mix up the status quo. And I'm like, you're never gonna carry this with appropriate weight. You're a show that doesn't care about serialization. And then the actress ended up coming back, and now they've had Maude a couple of times as like a ghost.
God, it's still on.
It's that weird thing of like The Simpsons premieres the year I'm born.
Sure does.
And I just can always track like, oh yeah, that's the exact span of my life. They've been making Simpsons episodes every single moment of my life.
Yeah.
And which one of us will die first?
The Balenciaga thing too, I haven't watched yet, but I'm interested. I just also find it so fucking weird.
What are you talking about?
The Simpsons crossed over with Balenciaga. You know,
Mhm.
Homer wears a big jacket.
Really?
Yes. Oh yeah, you didn't hear
Did they
about
do
this.
like a product line, or they just did like an animated
Well,
thing?
pretty sure that it's in an episode.
It's in an episode, I think.
It was like they used The Simpsons to debut their new.
Correct.
I'm looking here. There's a $995 Balenciaga Simpsons hoodie
Yes.
and a $595 Balenciaga Simpsons shirt. So it
Yep.
does seem like they made some products as well.
And can I say something, Griff?
Yeah.
Worth it.
There's
Think that's
also
worth it?
a keychain that costs $260. I don't think any of these items look good.
Ben, have you ever been to a fashion show like
I've
you
never
know,
been
fashion,
invited.
Like proper.
No one's invited me.
You should go. You should do it.
I would love to.
It seems fun.
Yeah, it does seem like a
But you know
blast.
what? You want to be on the first row, I feel like.
Well, I gotta be.
I
Yeah.
think that's
I'm a
I
first
think
row
it's
guy.
pretty hard.
So if anyone out there knows somebody, I'm so open to it.
These
Yeah.
items are insane. They look like T-Public shit.
They do. They literally just have like Simpsons shit printed on.
Right. And like this keychain looks like something you would get from the Simpsons shop at Universal Studios, except like it looks like the fucking Krusty Land keychain that I have.
Yeah.
Except it costs $260.
Yeah.
It looks no different in terms of materials, and it's just that the
It's
Simpsons
probably pretty nice.
happen to be wearing
gotta be.
Balenciaga on it.
Better be.
And Jane Campion directed this. That's why we're bringing this.
Yeah, Jane Campion loves The Simpsons. She's
anyway.
probably been on The Simpsons. Everyone has. At this point.
Happy plus anniversary, everybody.
God.
Doughboys are on The Simpsons.
They were.
They were drawn on, at least.
That
Right?
fucking
They-
rules,
voice.
man.
It
That's
is
like
Mitch,
a
pretty-
fucking
Mitch has
real
voiced
point
a
of pride.
character.
Oh, has he?
There's
Okay,
an episode
I
where the
take it
Simpsons
back.
go to Boston and
Oh,
they
sure.
cast Mitch as Hometown Boy Makes Good.
But then they drew Mitch.
Correct. They drew
And
Mitch and
Nick.
Weiger non-speaking
And, like,
in an
Karina
episode of Wherever Makes
Longworth
Podcast.
and-
Sharpling and Worcester.
Right. You know, like a
Right.
bunch of
Right.
podcasters. Right.
Right. The Mount Podmore.
Yeah. The big boys. two friends.
Yeah.
Chris
Okay.
Bidenko and Emma Coles.
What's with the dad?
Ooh, he's bad news.
Yeah.
Because his whole deal is like he's like so progressive that he's like flipping the conservative dad kind of trope, right?
Right.
Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I'll admit, I keep on, in my head, I'm running shit from A Girl's Own Story and Two Friends in together because I watch them back to back.
Right.
Girl's Own Story has one of the most bizarre parent dynamics I've ever seen in a way that's really fascinating. So the dad in this stood out to me less because I was just coming off of the like, what's going on with that fucking dad? But yes, I feel like she's way ahead of the curve, commenting on people who go out of their way to project a sense of liberalism.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
To cover up
For
for their
appearances?
shortcomings.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. Just a reminder that things that people argue about as if they're new problems are things that have been going on for time memoriam, and that we live in a cyclical society that just repeats the same shit over and over again every 10 years.
So yeah, you've got, I mean, like, just to give the vague plot, I guess, you've got Louise, who's the more straight-laced one.
The David.
It's probably true. But you see, I'm less straight-laced than you in some ways. I don't know.
In what ways?
Yeah, I don't know.
David doesn't want to say them.
Kelly.
He's got curly laces.
Yeah, I got curly laces. Kelly is the more punkish one.
The Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Wait, Ben, what's the deal with you watching this movie, though? What's the subtitle?
Oh, yeah,
thing?
you were telling us.
Oh, yeah.
What's the story?
So I fucking watched. I didn't realize it was on Criterion.
Mhm.
So instead, I like watched through some really random film company that now I'm like, hold on, let me see.
Milestone?
Yes. So I watched.
You rented it from their site or on
Yes.
Vimeo?
I watched it through their site, which is
Okay.
being powered by Vimeo. You can't watch it on Vimeo.
Right.
Had no subtitles.
Right, because their site is primarily the rentals are like, do you want to screen this for your film class? It's less meant to be like a storefront for individual movies. It's like for academic purposes, here's the license to watch this movie. Okay, so you watched it there.
No subtitles. So for me,
You didn't understand most of what they were
I
saying.
had no idea. Yeah. It
The
was
accents
like,
are heavy. I had to click
yeah.
those subtitles on real fast.
I'm sure.
yeah, you were going to have some accents, you know?
And it's also like there's some teen slang that's now
Yes.
40 years old. So it's like the subtitles are helpful.
I'm sure. Yeah. I was.
Oh, it's
lost.
also a low budget film where the sound quality isn't the best. It's a little muddled sometimes.
Sure, right. It's the scan is not perfect. So what's going to happen is Kelly is going to basically by the end of the movie be like almost homeless
Yes.
and like doing drugs.
By the end of the movie, you mean the beginning of the film.
Exactly. By the end of their friendship.
Yes.
The beginning of the movie.
Right.
But Louise is the one who actually has the sort of permissive parents
Mhm.
who don't really cock an eyebrow at anything, and which I get, like this sort of the kid who kind of goes conservative to rebel against the permissiveness, like makes sense to me. I knew kids like that.
That also makes sense from the Campion perspective. Not that she's conservative, but the idea of like if you have the loosey goosey artsy parents, that maybe you become a cerebral, academic. I don't know.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like, which is what I expected more from this movie. There's the stuff with their like romances. They don't know how to talk about it with each other
Yeah.
in different kinds of ways, right? Like, and just like that's to me so fundamental to depictions of teen friendship is like it's so tough for teen friendships to handle romance sometimes, especially like really tight knit friends.
Yeah.
One of them gets a boyfriend or a girlfriend. It's like
Even like
hard to navigate that dynamic.
where puberty sort of hits
Right.
Mhm.
It can hit people different. Like
Right.
some people are right.
early, like early on and
Were
are
you
going
early, Ben?
through. I was kind of, I guess early. Yeah.
Well,
Sometimes it hits very late. Like I'm hoping the next year or two. 2022, I think, might be a big one for me.
What
Still
about
waiting on
you,
that first
David?
chest hair.
huh?
What about you?
I feel like I was late. I was always tall.
Well, right.
How
Like,
young did you crack 6 feet?
like 12,
Okay.
I think.
And that is when you're like,
I think when I was 12, I was
Fifth grade.
6'1".
Jesus fucking Christ.
And my
Damn.
doctor.
I think when I was 12, I was 4'9". Like, I'm not even joking. I remember it being a big deal when I cracked 5.
I'm trying
It
to
took a
remember.
while.
I may have been 14. I just remember there was some age. It was either 12 or 14.
Yeah.
When I was over 6 feet. I was the same height as my dad. I was 6'1".
Mhm.
And my doctor was like, you might be done. You might have like a
Another
little
foot
left.
to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I had 2 more inches to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think I may have been 12 and I like hit 6'3" when I was 14 and that was that. I'm
See,
not
I was like 19. My doctor was like, "You might have another inch or two in you," and I was like, "Come on."
sure. Let's go.
I kept
Well,
being like,
you know
what
what?
if
I
I-
had friends like that who
It sometimes
like added a
happens.
few inches in like college.
I know. I kept on hoping.
Like, yeah, it was funny. Like the kids who were very small and like they actually
Yeah.
just were really late
I mean, my
to
like
grow.
mother
I don't
and
know.
father.
But like, I feel like my voice broke when I was like 13. Like I was a little late on some of that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What
Nothing
happened
crazy.
to me, I will say, is that so I'm a size 12 foot and
right.
basically just had that right away. And David is
You fucking clown.
he's
clown
putting his eyebrows up and
Big foot
down.
over
You
here.
fucking clown feet.
I've always had clown
Fucking
feet.
Sasquatch over here.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it's like it was like a moment where I was like really clowning
Real
it up,
Ned
walking
Flanders.
around.
You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
wait a
Hey,
second. Stupid,
hey.
sexy
Wait a
Hoslet.
second.
Hey,
My mother and father are both very small
They're
people.
small people.
Uh,
Your mother is comically.
my mother is comically petite,
Yes, she's very small.
and it is like a fucking porcelain doll. And then my paternal grandparents were small. I mean, my grandfather was stocky, but not particularly tall. My grandmother was tiny. My maternal grandmother was tiny. My maternal grandfather was like over 6 feet tall. And whenever we complain about the fact that we're short, my grandmother's like, I tried to put some tall DNA into the pool.
Sure. Well, it's there now.
Yeah. He was like 6'1", bright red hair, and none of us got.
No, you did not.
No.
What if you end up having like a kid and they're
It's like
like on the
6'1".
basketball team and are
I'm gonna
like
fucking hate it.
dunking and you're like, at those games?
Do you know what's the thing I'm actually
You'd be
dreading?
proud.
Do you know what I'm actually dreading?
What?
I'm dreading the day that David's daughter is taller than me and how soon it's going to happen.
It's not gonna be that. Soon.
It's going to be pretty fucking soon. For people who don't know, Forky David's wife is also over 6 feet.
He's 6'1".
She's going to be so
Who knows?
goddamn.
Maybe my daughter will be small.
I hope so.
There's small people in the
I need
family.
something.
Smaller.
How tall is she now? Like 3'4"? 9 months, 3'4".
She's going to the doctor next week, so we'll find out.
Get a right. I'm keeping track of how many inches I have on her still because I'm just like, it's not gonna last long.
You should draw.
By the time she's 6, she's gonna be dunking on me.
at your apartment, just like, pencil in a little line.
David. If I get a full-sized, full-scale cutout of myself,
No.
will you put it in the door frame so you
No.
can measure the boss baby against me to see when she...
Stop it. Crazy person.
I think that'd be a fun way to track progress.
Oh, yeah, you think that'd be fun?
Yeah.
Is there any other sequences that stick out to you and two friends?
I think the
guys?
last 20 minutes of this are really good,
Yeah,
which is
I
when
agree
you
with
get
that.
to like the honeymoon phase, the courtship, the sort of giddiness of finding a
the
new friend and some
passing
new
note
identity.
sequence is really fun.
That's really good.
Yeah.
The letters themselves are really fun.
Yeah. They're great.
And there's the sort of the dance sequence when they're all like singing and dancing along with the pop song. That's
Mhm.
really fucking fun. It also is interesting because we'll talk about Sweetie next week.
Great movie.
But Alex Ross Perry and I, a friend of the show, saw that together at Lincoln Center a couple of years ago. We did some double feature of 2 movies at Lincoln Center together.
Sure.
And we saw something and we were like, Sweetie's playing after the... Have you ever seen Sweetie? We should see Sweetie, right? That's like an important thing. And we both knew nothing about it and were not prepared for how like goofy and stylized Sweetie is.
Very much so.
Sweetie is a movie that very much has the aesthetics of Babe.
It does. It's got bright colors. And but the other thing
And
with
that sort of
Sweetie,
comedic energy.
it
and-
has true first film energy of her being like, let me try this.
Right.
Like, let me try a lot of stuff.
Let me put
Yeah.
everything into in case I never get to make anything ever
Right,
again.
right.
The last 20 minutes of this have a little bit of that
Little bit.
Sweetie energy.
Obviously, this was made on, I'm sure, a very tight schedule and budget.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, she had less room to try stuff like that.
But I don't want to be a broken record here. A Girl's Own Story has more of this energy, not throughout, but interspersed. It's got the distancing, but it's interspersed with sort of odder sequences. I just found that film a lot more impactful. The last 20 minutes of this, for me, are what worked. I struggled with the first close to hour. It's a film that's only an hour and 18
it's like
minutes
hour
long.
20 minutes. Yeah.
I'd be curious. I'm not like in an eager rush to rewatch it right away. I'd be curious to rewatch it to see if it plays better with the whole thing in your head a second time.
Maybe. I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot of those backward movies,
Yeah.
were worked entirely differently the second time you see him.
But I do think the sort of like oblique distancing from
Right.
the characters at the beginning is an intellectual idea I understand that makes it
Especially since when I
a
turned
little
this,
hard to engage.
when I turned this on, I knew it was in backwards.
Yes.
But if you don't know that, I think the first
It's-
15 minutes are pretty alienating.
It
Because it's
is.
like they're not
I
friends.
I think even
Not
so,
just-
it's alienating.
Yeah,
Like I was watching, I was like, who am I following here?
Right,
Like,
because there's a lot of adults in the first sequence as well, and
Right.
you don't really know who's who, and yeah.
and everything shot from a remove, and the characters speak in very heavy accents. And at the beginning, everyone's like cold and dispassionate, and so I get it. Like all of this is like, and I feel like Loveless is a similar thing where I'm like, I don't know if I enjoy watching this movie. I get it. I see what you're doing here. It's
Sure.
interesting. They're
Passionless.
compelling pieces.
This seems like it has connection to Passionless Moments. Not that I've seen Passionless Moments, but like a lot of mundane stuff, like picking up on little
But Passionless
details.
Moments is like
All right.
funny. It's got this weird comic strip kind of like energy to it.
I do have a box office game for us.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Because this movie was released in New York City.
Oh.
On April 24th,
So
1996.
this fully fucking counts. If it got a theatrical release.
Well, we're talking 10 years later. It must have screened.
Okay, so then maybe it counts
retrospectively,
less.
but-
Sure.
But still, April 24th, 1996. David Sims's 10th birthday.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm actually in London at that point, but I am in New York.
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Moved there in 95. Stayed till 08.
God, I had a bunch of follow-up questions that just were eradicated by this revelation. I don't even know what to say now.
So I wasn't in town. I may have been in town because I usually would come in town in April. Passover. But I did live in England. But it did debut there at that time. It's not on the chart. I'm not seeing it here. Not seeing it on the
Okay.
chart.
Probably played at the Quad
Exactly.
for like 2 days.
The
Yeah.
Cinema Village. No,
Yeah.
probably, come on. It was probably like Lincoln Center. It was post piano.
I don't
Probably
know.
some kind of Campion thing.
I don't know.
Something cool like that.
Sure. Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Maybe
maybe.
showed Sweetie and Angel at my table.
Yeah.
And so we can do that box office game. But yeah, is there any other? I mean, the boys wrote a whole like history of Australian cinema in the dossier.
The dossiers are
These
so
maniacs.
fucking. This is the thing. Like sometimes I read the dossier and I'm like, is the show better if we just read everything they wrote verbatim?
I mean,
There's certainly enough material.
the thing that's interesting and that they're sort of talking about is like Australian cinema did have this early boom,
Mm-hmm.
sort of centered around the wars and the depression and stuff. Like, but by the 70s, by the time Campion's coming around, it had been like decades of dark ages. Like really not
Sure.
really making a lot of homegrown cinema at all.
But then 80s are this boom revival period
'Cause
between
of-
Mad Max and Dundee. And
Yeah, Peter Weir and George
right.
Miller and all
Yeah.
these, like, she's a New Zealand director, but obviously she makes movies in
Yeah,
Australia. Picnic at Hanging Rock and Mad Max are the sort of the two like movies that reboot the Australian industry. Because Mad Max, that's the Ozploitation,
Sure.
right? Trashy, and then Picnic
Weir
at Hanging
was
Rock, that's like
High end.
the classy, artier stuff. There were
Both of those directors cross over.
They sure do, as do, of course,
Globally.
so many Australian directors and performers.
Mhm.
It's a real powerhouse for acting, I feel like, right? So many great actors come out of.
I know he's another New Zealand guy who often gets miscategorized as an Australian, but someone was tweeting the other day, just a complete memory hole, forgotten about this. When Al Qaeda wanted to kidnap Russell Crowe to destabilize American culture pre 9/11,
They did?
this was like a People magazine front cover story. Like once I started digging into this, I was like, oh yeah, I fucking remember this.
I'll say, by the way, Russell Crowe was born in New Zealand, but I think he spent most of his life in Australia. He is
Okay.
more Australian than New Zealand
Okay.
in a lot of ways.
And certainly worked more in Australia.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Romper Stomper.
Romper
You
Stomper.
ever seen that movie?
Romper Stomper, isn't it?
Pretty good. Plays like a Nazi.
Romper Stomper.
Like a neo-Nazi. Like a
So
skinhead.
good. Bad.
Stay away.
Don't do it.
No, I didn't know about that, Griffin. I didn't know that Osama bin Laden
I
tried to
guarantee you
kidnap
knew
Russell
this
Crowe.
at the time. That was
Maybe.
part of their thing where they were like, how do we fuck with Americans? What if we kidnap their most beloved movie star, Kiwi Russell Crowe? It speaks to like how big he was in that one fucking moment where everyone was like, well, he's going to be Charlton Heston, right? He will remain this iconic for 40 years.
David,
Yes.
so much hard work goes into maintaining a small business.
That's true. It is. It's a lot of individual hard work.
Blank Check Productions, you and I walking
Yeah.
up and down the aisles, making sure the machinery is working all right.
So many machines we bought.
Right there with our hard hats and our checklists.
Yeah, we love to. It's really everything you hear is automated. It's all machine.
Absolutely. It's all machine made. We're trying to build our own matrix. That's what we're trying to do. But David,
Right. Yes.
In that algorithm, the most valuable thing is time.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe you should stop wasting it on certain things like trips to the post office, Griffin.
We have 3.5-hour episodes to record. Where's the time to go to the post office?
Ugh. Yes, exactly. Stamps.com makes it easy to mail and ship right from your computer. You save time and money. You send letters and packages for less with discounted rates from USPS, UPS, and more.
Since 1998.
1998. Indispensable tool for nearly 1 million businesses.
That's so long. In the life cycle of the internet, how many sites are still worth using that you were using in 1998?
I don't know. Hamster Dance, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good site. You're right. That's a sturdy one.
It's very sturdy. Still delivers. Stamps.com brings
And
the services
Stamps.com delivers. I'm sorry. You lobbed that up. I have to say that it helps you deliver the mail.
It does. Stamps.com brings the services of the U.S. Postal Service and UPS shipping right to your computer. So whether you're in an office sending invoices, you're a side hustle Etsy shop, you're a full-blown warehouse shipping out orders,
Like
Stamps.com will make your life easier. All you need is a computer and a standard printer, no special supplies or equipment. Within minutes, you're up and running, printing official postage for any letter, any package, anywhere you want to send it, and you'll get exclusive discounts on postage and shipping from USPS and UPS.
Once your mail's ready, all you do, you schedule a pickup or you drop it off. No traffic, no lines.
Cut the confusion out of shipping. With Stamps.com's new rate advisor tool, you can compare shipping rates and timelines to easily find the best option. So
It's so easy. Easy's the key word here.
you got to save time and money with Stamps.com. There's no risk.
Nope.
And with our promo code CHECK, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. There's no long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in CHECK. That's Stamps.com, promo code CHECK. Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again.
Never.
So in the 70s, obviously, you do have people like Peter Weir, Gillian Armstrong emerging, right? But you also apparently very popular, the Ocker comedy.
What?
Which was the sort of like, kind of, I suppose, the sort of American Pie type movie of its day.
Really?
Celebrating male sexual exploits, vulgar, anti-intellectual,
Is this a subgenre or is the thing called the Ocker comedy?
Ocker, A-O-C-K-E-R. It's like a subgenre. It's like a sort of, trashy, lowbrow comedy.
What are like the prime examples of that?
Let's see. What are some Ocker movies?
Like who comes out of the Ocker? Is this like Rick Mayall and Yahoo Serious? Like,
Ocker apparently recorded as a nickname for anyone called Oscar. The Australian comic strip Ginger Meggs had a character called Oscar, and that became the sort of term you use for like a youth, who's up to no good.
So it's like if we started
a
calling
bad boy.
If we called like raunchy teen comedies
Porky.
the Ziggy movies.
Exactly. So you've got Stork, The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie. Ooh, look out for this guy. Which is Barry Humphries.
Oh.
Who eventually is Dame Edna and
Bruce the Shark.
Bruce the Shark and Alvin Purple.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Look at this poster. It's got people fucking feet together. So that's one kind of movie.
Okay.
There's also just softcore porn, very popular in the 70s.
Yeah.
I guess
Could go to a theater.
Well, because it's pre-VHS.
No, I know. I'm
You
just
gotta
saying.
Jack your hog in a fucking AMC.
That's so wild. Yeah.
It's wild to think about that. That
I
was
guess
like
you just sat there and then you were like, I'm gonna jerk it later thinking about
That's
this.
the thing. I think
Like,
people
that's what you
had
have
a
to do.
better, imagination.
That's the thing that's insane to think about is like there was this moment where like going to a porno theater became like weirdly mainstream, but the rules were like, but don't masturbate. And people were like, I think I'm going to do it. And they're like, don't do it. Right. I mean, and then, they drop off and the thing becomes like, oh, if you go to a porno theater, there are going to be like 3 guys there, like 3
in
weird
trench
guys in
coat.
trench coats. They're definitely jerking off.
Right.
They're sitting
And
far
Jack
away from
Nicholson from The Departed is there, basically.
Right.
back to Australian cinema for a second. I'm kind of having fun with this now.
You're having a great
So
time.
like something like Picnic at Hanging Rock obviously gets the acclaim, but it doesn't make the dollars and cents.
the dinero.
Well, what is the money, the currency from
the
Australia?
Australian dollar? You know,
they just call it that?
And you know their money is
doesn't that
it's like
suck?
plastic.
Yeah, it does suck.
It's so you can go in the water with it. I'm not joking.
Really?
Yeah, their money's like
Plastic money.
it's not paper. It's like made out of waterproof material.
I mean, it's an island country. Okay.
It's a big fucking island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be sure that I'm saying that's always something that people talk about, but now I want to make sure it's not some like British stereotype about stupid Australians who go swimming with their money.
there's fucking plastic monies in it.
Yeah, polymer. It's made of polymer. I just want to say it's not just because like Australians like go in the water and they're like, oh, my money, oh, it's gone. Like it's because it's, more durable and it doesn't like, have to spend money. Like, it's better for the environment. I think.
Also, you can throw it on the Barbie.
You can throw it on the Barbie.
You know that old catchphrase?
No,
Throw another dollar on the Barbie.
I mean, we probably talked about this a little in the Mad Max episode, but Mad Max is the moment where it's like, well, they never even considered going to the government because they knew the government would never give them money to make that.
Yes.
Right? And it becomes such a huge hit that they totally reorganize the industry and they're like, okay, the government's kind of out. There needs to be like private funding of movies because like this thing is commercial. This thing is good.
The insane fact that like Mad Max was almost exclusively financed by doctors.
It sure
like George
was.
Miller's medical school friends who had made a lot of money in successful practices and were just like, yeah, movie, why not? It's a safe business.
So the box office game for April 26, 1996. Come on, let's do it.
Okay, April 26, 1996. Okay.
So there's 4 new movies at the box office this week, which is kind of part of
In
the
April.
fun.
Yeah.
And this is April, and this is a dire box office.
Really?
This is some shit. Number 1 is an action film from one of the action stars at the time. One of the lesser ones. No offense.
A lesser one.
And I would say it's one of his lesser films. He directed it.
He directed it.
It's sort of one of those, it happens with a lot of these guys. Like, as things are starting to get a little shaky, they're like, well, what the thing is that I should make.
Is it Van Damme or Seagal?
It's Van Damme.
And I looked this up the other day and I forget which one he directed.
So Seagal directed what? Fire Down Below? Is that the one he directed?
Yeah, right. It's the environmental one.
Right.
It's the masterpiece.
Yes, that is.
Yes.
I'm sorry, he didn't direct it, but that is the one that's environmental. Maybe Seagal never directed a movie.
Seagal did. Didn't he direct the environmental movie? Seagal directed a movie.
He definitely directed a movie. He directed On Deadly Ground.
Thank you. I'm
That's
sorry.
the
I was about to
environmental
pull the
one.
title.
Yeah, there you
yes.
go. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway.
What's this Van Damme movie called?
It's called The Quest.
Right.
It's the one where he's going to Tibet, I think.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Not a good actor.
And there's going to be like a big fighting tournament in Tibet.
Not a good actor.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yeah. I would say probably the worst of the bunch of like
He's the
80s
worst
action stars.
He's become a better actor.
Right. He's actually, as he's aged, gotten
Yeah.
a little grit to him.
I mean,
he's the villain in the Expendables 2, right? Is he the villain?
2, and
Right?
I believe his character's name is Villain.
Well, villain. Means villain.
He directed another movie in 2010.
How was it?
It's called Full Love. Original title, Frenchie.
But yes, I do feel like when he was at his peak with like Time Cop and Universal Soldier and all that, yes, he was. It was that he was acrobatic and he could do the splits and all that. Like, yeah, he's not like a good actor.
I also feel like, unlike Seagal, he has talked about the fact that he was like cocky and lazy and high in his own supply and that he kind of fucked it up for himself.
Sure.
And like you watch Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, a film I love.
Good movie.
And he's got like an odd amount of gravitas in that where you're like, holy shit, like where did this fucking come from? I think when his career bottomed out, unlike a guy like Seagal who went further up his ass, Van Damme was like, I need to like appreciate what I have and work for what I want.
He's not an asshole in the way that
He used to be.
right. He used to maybe be an
used to be.
egotistical guy, but
I think he's gotten mellowed out.
so
Although,
some of the
yeah, I
other
don't know.
people in The Quest, Roger Moore,
Wild.
older Roger Moore,
It
James
is-
Remar.
I mean, this is the On Deadly Ground thing where it's like, now I'm ready for my serious statement. I want to make a serious movie.
Jack McGee, love Jack McGee.
Love Jack McGee.
Anytime I can get some McGee,
Yeah.
I want it.
Yep.
Remember he was so good in The Fighter.
So good. And Moneyball, he's one of the...
Great in Moneyball.
Yeah.
One of the scouts. Yeah.
I watched
All right.
that fucking first scene in Moneyball. Not the first scene, but the first like boardroom scene where all the scouts are talking
Mm-hmm.
and Brad Pitt does the like blah, 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 blah. I watched that scene like fucking 5 times a
I'm
day.
going to watch Moneyball right now. I'm going to throw it on.
So good.
Number 2. It's a chick flick.
Okay.
Rom-com of the 90s. Classic watch it on a plane.
Long
Long title.
It's not Roman Michelle's high school reunion.
No, that's a good movie.
Right. That's why I'm
This
trying to
movie
think of
is
something that's
not
lower
bad.
than that. Yeah, but it's a long title.
Yeah, long time.
Truth About Cats and Dogs?
The Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Yeah.
Made $34 million at the U.S. box office.
it was a reasonable hit.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Sort of a Cyrano de Bergerac thing from what I remember. It's Uma
Yes.
Thurman and Janine Garofalo, right?
Right.
And Janine is the sort of Cyrano.
And
She's,
is this the same year as Jerry Maguire?
yeah, 96.
Right. Because Cameron Crowe said he wrote the Renee Zellweger part for Jean Garofalo and the studio wouldn't hire her
Right,
unless she
right.
lost weight. That's the famous story there. But so that's sort of her
totally
like.
different movie with her.
I know.
Jesus.
I mean, I love Janine, especially in this
of course, she
period.
rules.
But I feel like that was sort of not her consolation prize movie, but that was the like, fuck, I need to do one of these. I was told I was about to be like a rom-com star.
Right. Put me above the title.
Right.
I remember that movie being cute. I think I saw it on a plane.
Yeah.
Ben Chaplin, Jamie Foxx. Young Jamie Foxx is in it.
Mhm.
Directed by Michael Lehman, the
Is
king.
he like, is he the Ben Chaplin's best friend? Is he the,
I don't know.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
Don't remember.
Eh. That's the truth.
Plays a character called Ed.
Oh.
Don't know. Number 3 at the box office it was number 1 the week before.
Okay.
It's in its 4th week of release, and it spent 3 weeks at number 1. This movie spent 3 weeks at number 1. It is a legal thriller that got an Oscar nomination.
The Client?
No. When you hear that this movie was 3 weeks at number 1, I know it's a different time in Hollywood. It's April, was not like
Primal Fear?
Primal Fear.
Yeah, it was a big hit.
3 weeks at number 1.
It was a big hit.
It was a pretty big hit.
It was a pretty big hit.
And there's that. Do you follow the Oscar Clips account?
Yes.
I forgot that Edward Norton's Oscar clip reveals the twist of Primal Fear. It is the last scene in the movie, basically.
Is it? So I only watched Primal Fear for the first time in the last like 2 years. And
I guess it's not the scene where he
right.
reveals that he doesn't have the stutter.
That's the first of the
Spoilers.
2 twists.
But right,
It's one. It ruins one of the 2.
It's
But-
that he did it, right? But you're right. The question is whether his motivations, I
right,
guess, right?
and which one's the dominant personality. But also, David, by that point, Primal Fear is getting an Oscar nomination like 10 months after
It's
it's blown up
basically
the
a year
box
later.
office.
Basically
Right.
a
It's like
year
everyone's seen this. They know what the fucking thing is. Yeah.
Primal Fear.
That movie's not very good.
No, it's
yeah.
not. And you throw it on,
Yeah.
which I did a few years ago, and it's like Gere, Norton, Laura Linney,
Yeah.
John Mahoney, Alfred Woodard, Frances McDormand, Terry O'Quinn, Andre Brower. You're just like,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And then it's like it's kind of whatever, and it's sort of long. It's like 2 hours plus.
The fascinating thing with it too is like that's the movie where like fucking Edward Norton is like a drama school student who out of nowhere gets this fucking prime role, and everyone in Hollywood is like, this is the new leading man, Academy Award nomination, anointment, you're the guy, right? Like 2 years later, he's on the cover of Vanity Fair, and it's like, is there any question Edward Norton is the actor of his generation? When he does the score with De Niro and Brando, everyone's like, of course, the 3 Titans, 3 generations, right? And you watch that movie now, and the Edward Norton shit holds up the worst. That performance does not really work through modern eyes. And at the time, everyone was like, this is sort of embarrassing. Richard Gere got out acted by Norton. Here's a Richard Gere vehicle, and Norton's running circles around him, and the Gere shit's kind of creaky. And you watch it now, and you're like, Gere shit's kind of good.
Gere's solid. The thing
Gere's
with
solid
Norton
in
is
it.
he's a good actor, but the performances he's most famous for are the really gimmicky,
Yeah.
over the top, tick-filled things.
And also kind of synonymous with really toxic kind of stuff.
There's a part of that, but I think it's more
Fight
than
Fight Club
asshole.
to me is just like a thing that I was obsessed with in high school.
you were into Fight Club?
I
Oh.
I
That
well,
movie
I don't
spoke
want
to
to
you in
talk
some
about
way?
it, David.
Wait, what? You wanted
No.
to like make bombs out of
Dude,
soap?
Don't make him talk about
Don't make me talk about it.
it. The Fight Club is one of the trickiest texts to
That's
parse.
a good movie.
Look, I
David
think
is
his
boxing.
performance in that holds up great. I think he's great
He's so
in
good
that.
in that movie.
He's so
I
good.
think the Norton performances that hold up bad are, as you said, the very ticky actor showcases. Look at how I trained myself to do this fucking thing. David's doing a jerk off motion. I kind of agree. Alison Wilmer wrote
But
a really
he's
good
sometimes
piece
a really
about
good
it
actor.
when
He
Motherless Brooklyn came out.
sometimes fucking nails it.
I mean, it's so funny. I think
so good in like People versus Larry Flint when he's
Oh, incredible.
playing like the kind of ordinary guy. He's
Yeah.
amazing.
also, I mean, like Wes Anderson's been using him great.
Sure. Yeah.
But Wes Anderson has gone totally against his intensity.
Yeah.
He's so fucking good in Moonrise and in Budapest.
I think he's great in Birdman. Like that movie is a
I do
pain
too,
in the ass,
but that
but like he's
also-
good in it.
That felt like him making fun of himself.
Right, exactly. That's why it was fun and
He's
self-aware.
weirdly good at comedy,
Yeah, he is.
and
That's
he's
the
good
smoochie,
playing
man.
normal guys. And if you give him like a thing to play,
what's it called?
he's
Keeping the
very
Faith.
good at the smoochie.
Keeping the Faith. He's
yes.
good. Keep the faith in that one.
Yeah, but the like big like, can you believe Edward Norton did this?
Those often.
Those are just.
I guess American History X is like the magnum opus performance, which is compelling. I don't like that movie.
I
need to
hate
rewatch it. Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
It's
in
just so
20 years.
ugly and
It's a nasty movie.
dark.
Number 4 at the box office,
Uh-huh.
Griffin.
Uh-huh.
It's one of those movies that when I was a kid, I'm 10 years old, right? And this movie comes out, I would see posters for it and I'd be like, that's a fucking grown-up ass movie. What
Yeah.
is that?
what is this
What's that about?
boring ass movie for grown-ups?
It's a crime thriller, sort of a neo-noir, directed by a New Zealand filmmaker, in fact.
Is it Alita Mahori?
It is.
Is it Mulholland Falls?
It's Mulholland Falls. Nolte, Melanie Griffith, Chaz Palminteri, Michael Madsen, Chris Penn, Jennifer Connelly,
Is Hideo in that, or do I just want him to be in that?
Bruce Dern. We got any Hideo? No Hideo. He should be.
Oh,
in it,
I thought you
though.
said Zendaya.
Let's edit him in.
Zendaya.
Is Zendaya?
Yeah, Zendaya's in it.
Okay.
She plays Michi. Malkovich apparently shows up. I still don't know what that movie's about. It kind of went nowhere.
Yeah.
I just know it's like men in hats and there's crime.
It looks so prestige for a movie that no one seems to
It's
love.
literally based on the Hat Squad, which was like a famous LAPD detective unit.
I'm wearing a hat.
And
Look
like,
at my hat. I'm gonna go
It's
fuck
just fucking-
Jennifer Connelly while
It's
wearing a
just-
hat.
you know, I don't think it cost a fortune. The budget here is $29 million.
Okay.
It's just back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's MGM. They're like, yeah, sure. Mulholland Falls. That'll sell.
This is the thing. I mean, this
People
is
will be excited
this
to
is
see
what
whatever that is.
we fucking lost. Like, you know, I feel like when we play the box office game, it kills a lot of nostalgia for like better times because you're like, shitty movies were always coming out. But there's a different type of shitty movie where you're like, a studio would just make a $30 million period crime thriller with like 10 good actors in it. That's not a thing anymore. It's not like I yearn for the halcyon
Well, now
days
we're
of
no,
No,
Mulholland
what was
Falls.
that HBO Max movie that everyone was raving about?
Well, this is the point. It went to HBO Max.
What's
Well,
the movie?
No sudden move.
Yeah.
Dune.
Right. No sudden move rules, but sort of
Oh, it's good?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But he's been very open about the fact that he's like the exact kind of movie I want to make, which is like adult sort of genre exercises with great actors is only going to get done at HBO Max. And it's only going to get done because I know how to make things for cheaper than anyone else. And he's just got this deal now where he's like, if I can deliver you like one movie a year with like 15 names in it, and I can get it done, and I'm my own DP and my own editor and this and that, and I my dolly is a wheelchair, and I like, shoot it in fucking 4 days. They're like, yeah, whatever, go do what you want. But they all get punted to HBO Max, which is a bummer.
Number 5 at the box office new this week. It's a basketball film. It's produced by Jersey Pictures, Jersey Films, the
It's
studio
not Blue
company.
Chips, is it?
Not Blue Chips. Sort of a forgotten film. I've never seen it. I know it because of its name. It's named after a neighborhood in Brooklyn. And
For a neighborhood in Brooklyn.
and I saw it on the list and I was like, right, that is a movie.
The basketball movie, and you've never seen it.
Never seen it.
Sounds like it'd be in your fucking wheelhouse.
It's sort of like a tough, unconventional coach molds a bunch of young men, type
I
movie.
don't think I know what this movie is.
The movie is called Sunset Park.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that was.
Now, you've
Who's
got
in it?
some, well, I'm going to tell you. You got some actors you might, recognize. Well, really just Terrence Howard.
Okay.
Is one of the young players on the team.
Okay.
I don't know the Fredro Starr or some of the other, I don't know the other guys. The coach is played by Rhea Perlman,
Wait a second,
who plays Phyllis Soroka, a PE coach
David. How have I never?
who, turns these kids around, I'm assuming.
I cannot believe. I mean, I love Rhea Perlman,
Who doesn't love Rhea Perlman?
but
Well, it's produced by DeVito.
yeah, no,
He
I
gets
know.
his wife in there.
I'm just looking at the poster for this now, and to have like Rhea Perlman standing arms crossed next to 2 basketball players, and the top billing on the poster is the soundtrack.
Yes.
Right?
The
Above
soundtrack.
the title is soundtrack featuring Tupac,
Tupac,
The Dog Pound, Queen Latifah, Ghostface
Right.
Killer,
It's got
and then
a-
to have Rhea Perlman underneath that, Sunset Park, and the tagline for this movie, you gotta represent.
Gotta.
How have I not seen it? How did I not
know.
produce this?
I don't know much about it except for its name.
Wow.
I don't think it's well regarded, but it does exist.
Wow. Carol Kane's in it?
Carol Kane's in it. Probably plays Rhea Perlman's best friend or sister or something.
Fuck.
Some other movies in the top 10. The Birdcage. Big
Okay.
movie. Mike Nichols is The Birdcage.
Big hit.
James and the Giant Peach from Henry Selick.
A movie I love that I hope we cover on this podcast if Henry Selick's new movie ever comes out.
Yep. The Substitute. That's the Tom Berenger movie. Yes.
Okay.
Fear.
Fear.
Classic. Wahlberg and Witherspoon.
Yeah, you could be afraid of me, aren't you?
Let me in the fucking door. Like when he does that.
Yeah, when he flips out.
I'm
It is
creep.
good.
I'm a
It's
creep.
very good.
I'm gonna creep on you.
And then an early Martin Lawrence hit, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, has the famous poster with the papyrus font.
That's
It
the one
looks
he
like
directed,
I
right?
did it in like 5 minutes. Yes, wrote
Yeah.
and directed.
Wow.
With Martin Lawrence and Lynn Whitfield,
Yeah.
Gina
and-
King,
and he's
Bobby
doing
Brown.
Real head cocked comedy
What?
face on the
There's
poster.
a thin line between what?
Yeah.
So those are the hits
Okay.
of April. April.
Yeah.
Two friends.
Two
Go
friends
see it
coming
somewhere.
out 10 years later.
New York City.
Yeah.
Mrs. Winterbourne. Like, what the hell is that? Celtic Pride. That feels like a movie you've seen.
I've not seen it.
Celtic Pride is a movie in which Daniel Stern and Dan Aykroyd are Boston Celtics fans. And they are terrified of whatever the rival team is beating them. So they kidnap the team's star player so
Damon
that they
Wayans.
start losing games. Damon Wayans.
And it's one of Apatow's first screenplay credits, right?
Yes. It's co-written by Apatow, and Bill Murray has always shit on it because he's
It's
like,
written by Apatow.
Yeah.
He co-wrote the story with Colin Quinn.
right.
Him and Colin Quinn were like, yeah, what would be funnier? You fucking
Boston
kidnap
guys,
Antoine
yeah.
Jameson or whatever. Like,
Right. And Bill Murray's always shit on it because he's like, you can't cast Danny Aykroyd as a Boston guy.
Sure.
He's like a Chicago Canadian.
Yeah.
He is very Chicago.
He's just always like, that's the worst casting I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, he's
Danny
Canadian.
Aykroyd?
Yeah, it's terrible. I've never seen it. Mrs. Winterbourne.
You know what? I'm sorry. The reason he shits on that movie, it was like an Esquire article for like their comedy issue where they interviewed Bill Murray about the state of modern comedy. And they were like, what do you think about like the new people running comedy like Judd Apatow? He's like, Judd Apatow, didn't he write that crappy movie where he cast he like his beginning and
He's
end of
not
Judd
gotten
Apatow
over
knowledge
it.
is like, I never got over the fact that guy at the age of 27 wrote a script in which Dan Aykroyd played a Celtics fan. I don't know from Knocked Up.
We're done.
He's irredeemable in my eyes.
Next week, Sweetie.
Sweetie.
Sort of her first real movie.
Yeah. And a wild Ben, you are
Lot
going to be
of fun.
surprised by how wild this movie is.
A lot of fun. Good
Cool.
movie.
It truly is like the only thing I can equate it to in tone is the Babe movies.
And it's another film about
It's got the
female
kind of
friendship.
manic, cartoonish, very stylized. Yeah.
I mean, family dynamics more, but still, about being chaotic in your 20s.
Right.
I love that.
So that's next week. This has been the Podcastiano.
The Podcastiano. And it's fun to say, and it's only become
Mwah.
more fun to say. The Podcastiano.
And then if we could just get a little bit of piano music to play us out.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
that's on you, Ben, or AJ. And
Oh, wait. Well,
Alex.
I actually forget that.
David, we should just mention one of the great appeals of this miniseries we're about to get into.
What's that?
A lot of penis coming up.
I think majority. We're going to have to count. I think a majority of these movies
Can
have
I-
dicks in them.
Can I make a request?
Yeah.
At the end of the miniseries, can you rate the peens?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
We'll rank
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
them. Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure Sweetie has a peen, so we'll see.
Wow.
I think most of them got a peen.
Most of them fucking
We're
do.
going to get more than a peek this miniseries.
That's right. Power of the Dog only has a peak, but there is a peak.
There is a peek. I heard Cumberbatch was talking about giving a peek, right?
It's a peak.
A peek.
Let's not fucking throw a parade over here. It's a peak. But yeah.
What do we see? Neck?
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing the top third.
Peek of the neck?
Yeah, exactly. That's fine though.
I'm excited.
I feel like sometimes.
Keitel's hog. I mean, I'm like, right? It's Keitel.
Keitel's, yeah. You're seeing that one. You're seeing that bad boy in two separate movies.
Woo, baby.
I've sometimes seen people say,
He's
like,
taking it out in like 4 movies, but like 2 Campion movies.
I know you were mentioning Babe before, but I'm ready to see that hog.
Oink oink. What were you gonna say, Griffin?
No, I've sometimes seen people in the comments go like, "What's this thing where Griffin and David like spend too much energy talking about like male actors being hot or showing dick on screen to like show
I
that
like to
they're
see a
not
dick.
like toxically straight?
No, I'm
Like they
toxic.
think it's performative." I'm like, we talk about this a lot when the mics
I'm
are
real
off.
toxic.
These are real conversations that
Love
we
seeing
have.
a dick.
We're like, did you see that guy's dick in the movie? This is not for show. If anything, we tone it down on mic.
We do. We do.
Folks, thank you all for listening to what will be our most peen-filled miniseries ever. And what an auspicious start. David's doing the pizza box, kissing the fingers, Italian chef. For the podcast, yeah, no. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media, Alex Barron and AJ McKeon for our editing. Hopefully they're playing some twinkly piano music underneath this. Thank you to JJ Birch, Nick Lariano for our research, Joe Bowen, Pat Reynolds for our artwork, Leigh Montgomery and the Great American Novel for our theme song. You can still listen to extremely loud and incredibly online wherever music is found. Go to patreon.com/blankcheck for blank check special features, where of course we are testing just how good Bustin makes us feel over the series of months. The 4 Ghostbusters films.
Very true.
That's what we're doing.
You can't stop us.
You can't. You can't. You can't. We're on our own now, as Bobby Brown would say. And you can go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit. Tune in next week for Sweetie.
And then, I just want to say, really, some nerdy shit. Check in from time to time.
It gets really nerdy.
Yeah, but it's cool. I
It's
loved
cool.
it. Love to see it.
I like that we've created a safe space where people can freak out over like the new poster just dropped.
Yeah.
Let's analyze this building block.
It fucking rules. It's great.
Yeah.
And get in on it. It's like people are really like positive and supportive.
I'll say Ghostbusters Afterlife building is fucking weird and it's
Crazy.
very different than what's on the posters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird.
Is Slimer and Slimer.
Can I say this? The movie will have been out for months at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you haven't seen it, David and I have.
Yeah.
Slimer is fully not in it.
No Slimer.
Oh, so
One of the
it's like
better
that new
decisions they
blue
made.
fucker.
Muncher.
Yeah.
It's
But-
Muncher.
But you know who is in it?
Hmm.
Fucking everyone else.
Yeah, everyone else
They
is in it.
showed a restraint and not bringing Slimer back, and they brought every other fucking
That
thing back.
marshmallow fucker. Of course, right?
Ben?
Yeah, I knew it.
Ben,
Knew it.
do you know what they do?
No,
He's
don't
small or
let's
something.
let's not talk about
It's
it.
like a
We'll
bag
save
of
them there
marshmallows.
Yeah,
or
there's
something.
like
Yeah, it's a
80
bag.
of them, and they're tiny.
Uh,
They're little minions.
I mean, I do like when things are a lot.
Oh, you like multiple, right? Sure, a horde. You like a horde.
I love a horde.
Well,
But
it
you
is
hate
a
little
horde.
things.
What?
You hate little.
But when there's
They
a
are
bunch
small,
of them
but it's
together,
a horde,
it's fucking
Griffin.
cool as
So
hell.
it's kind of like
They never like stack up on top of each other and become a bigger thing, though.
that would have been fun.
That would have been good.
I'm almost surprised that they didn't do that either. I don't know. Listen, we'll spend too much time talking about that dog shit movie over on Patreon. So pay $5 if you want to hear me rag on a movie that gave me an existential crisis. And as always,
Thank you.
what?
I said, I'm thanking you for getting back on track.
And as always, you're welcome.
It's nice to see the two friends.
That's what we are, baby. Maybe we weren't first, but we did it best.
Oh, you want a moment.
I want a moment.
Needs a moment now.
I want just a.
But David just said hit record Joe.
I know he did.
My name isn't Joe.
No.
It's Ben.
That's why I needed a moment to recalibrate. I didn't know what to call you,
But
but
we don't have to include any of this.
Well,
Take your time.
I don't know.